There are people serving very close to the president that have told me verbatim, we should expect, quote, shock and awe if the president wins a second term. You will see a flurry of executive orders. You will see the president pull out of foreign alliances. You will see the president align with dictators around the world.
That's Miles Taylor, and he's a former top Homeland Security official who's now talking about what he saw when he worked inside the Trump White House. Now, many Republicans from outside the administration have also spoken out about Trump, and they did so even at the DNC this week.
We are a country divided, and we have a president doing everything in his power to make it that way.
This isn't about a Republican or Democrat. It's about a person decent enough, stable enough, strong enough to get our economy back on track. Donald Trump isn't that person. Joe Biden is.
Continuing to follow that path will have terrible consequences for America's soul because we're being taken down the wrong road by a president who is pitted one against the other.
Not only Republicans condemning Trump, but actually going as far as to say they're going to vote for Joe Biden. And now a group of 70 Republican national security experts, they've also banded together announcing their support for Biden as well. They penned a letter explaining why, among other things saying that Trump has gravely damaged America's role as world leader. The president, unfit to lead during a crisis, he's aligned with dictators, solicited foreign influence in elections, and much more. Our good friend Chris Shays, he signed the letter, and he's a former Connecticut congressman who served on the House Homeland Security Committee while in Congress, and he's always kind enough to give us some time. So, Chris, more than just not liking Trump, what I got from your letter is you're afraid what he might do if he's there for 4 more years, and that the damage wouldn't just be bad, it may be irreparable. Give me your biggest concerns from what you've seen so far and what you're worried he could do if he gets another term.
Well, we don't have enough time of the day to do this, but no, I consider him dangerous. I consider him ignorant. I consider him someone who's made enemies out of our allies and made us vulnerable to our enemies. I consider him someone who speaks to the dark side of our nature, not the better side. The Cheyenne have a wonderful story. They talk about when they raise their child, they say you have 2 wolves within you. One is good and decent, and one is evil and harmful. And they say to their child, you will grow up depending which wolf you feed. So he's feeding to our dark side. He's feeding the bad wolf, and he's harming individuals, and he's harming our country. His line is just almost accepted now as normal. It's really alarming, and I'm not just concerned would he be even worse. He's so bad now that if he just continues, it's destructive.
To that end, listen, I think what General Mattis did, what he refused to do while he was in the administration, but also the editorial he wrote after what we saw at Lafayette Park. And I respect that. But so many, Chris, have not. I know Miles Taylor was one of the 70 signatures like you.
On one hand, all the Republicans that have confronted him, and 3 of them decided not to run again, and 1 was defeated.
To that end, though, Chris, do you believe that there is a responsibility for those formerly in the administration to publicly come out and say, let me tell you what I saw behind the scenes and why it should scare the you-know-what out of all of you?
Well, the people in the administration who've left have done that. The problem is the Republicans in office haven't. And I can tell you in part why. When Mark Sanford, basically a congressman from South Carolina, was critical of something the president had done, the president supported his opponent in a primary, and then Mark was defeated. That was intentional on the part of the president to say, if you do it, I'm going to make sure you lose. He has the ability to defeat. He doesn't have the ability to elect.
But I'm talking about the General Kellys. I'm talking about former Treasury Secretary Cohen. I'm talking about Tillerson. I'm saying the one thing that stuck out to me when I heard what Miles Taylor said was, I was there in the room. He was going to let California burn because they said bad things about him. He wanted to trade Puerto Rico for Greenland because the people were poor and dirty. Those literally, if you believe Taylor and I do, the words of our president. I think those things resonate if you were there, in the room with the guy and you're against him because of what you heard.
I'm interrupting you because the bottom line is a lot of people will not criticize him, but when he's defeated, and I pray to God he is, they'll all be saying they were never with him. And someone made the analogy of Vichy's France. When the Germans overran half of France, France made peace, and then they set up a government that the German Hitler could accept, and they made the government work and interact with the Germans. And then when Hitler was defeated, they all pretended they were never part of the Vichy government. That's what you're going to see a lot of Republicans do. They're going to say, well, we were never part of it. No, this is a Trump party right now. It's not a Republican party. And I don't know if it can be put back together again. Our country can be put back together again. I don't know if our party can.
Well, you mentioned a friend who said, hey, if this thing goes to civil war, you better look out for me. I'm curious, have you also heard from a lot of folks who voted for Trump 4 years ago and won't do it again? You get more of those conversations than I do. What are you hearing?
Absolutely. You get, but then there's a whole group of people who won't want to admit that they're going to vote for Trump, who will vote for Trump for a variety of reasons. And he'll lose the popular vote, but he still has a possibility of winning enough electoral votes. So, what I'd love to say before we end this interview, though, is I watched 4 days of the most spectacular modern day convention. Every day that the Democrats had speakers, they were so well prepared, so thoughtful. I mean, I could just turn to one thing after another Barack Obama was, of course, amazing. His wife, Michelle, was probably even better. Joe Biden's wife spoke so beautifully. Joe did a terrific job. Mayor Bloomberg hit it out of the park. I thought what he said was devastating about Trump and said so well. And obviously said by someone who has the financial ability to say, to the president, I know a businessman and you're not one. And that young man, I wrote his name down because he deserves, Bryden Harrington, who had the stutter. When I think about it, I get choked up. This is, I know Biden. I worked with him for all the 21 years I was in Congress. I worked with that man. And I can just tell you, he's the real deal.
Well, I wish I could have interrupted you like you did to me throughout this conversation, Chris. But for more of the musings of Chris Shays, king of all interruptions, I'm kidding. He's going to be kind enough on Thursday to be coming up here and help us with the final night of the convention. And I pray he gives Andrew a very hard time. But Chris, I see you holding up very well during the pandemic, and I always appreciate you making time for us.
This is very clever. You basically said I'm coming up. I said I could come up. I guess I am coming up.
That's right. So that's absolutely. Nice. It's called Catholic guilt. I worked it on you. Absolutely.
I love being with Andrew.
Yeah, good one there. All right, the one and only Mr. Shays. Now up next, the professor. He's an elections expert, and he's concerned that the president could try to steal this election, not just talk about it, but actually really try and do it. We'll have more on that after this.